Hi, this is John with Flat 6 Motorsports, and today we're taking a look at lowering options for your 718 Cayman and Boxster. Now the 718 is a great handling car from the factory, but if you're looking to improve the handling of the car or just the aesthetic of the car, there's several lowering options for you. Now lowering the car does create a lower center of gravity and reduces body roll, so there's a performance benefit for doing this, but also it makes the car look a lot better. Now there are three primary options for lowering your 718. There's lowering springs, height adjustable lowering springs, and coilovers. Lowering springs replace your factory springs with a shorter spring that generally lower your 718 about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. H&R offers a lowering spring for the 718. These are the most cost-effective lowering solutions and retain the factory shocks, so if your car is equipped with PASM, you can keep that functionality. Height adjustable springs are similar to lowering springs, but they add a lower adjustable spring perch, which gives clients the ability to dial in an exact ride height. These are typically for clients who want a specific look, and just like lowering springs, they offer great ride comfort and the retention of the factory shocks. Now coilovers offer height adjustment, but they also offer typically rebound or compression adjustment within the shock. These are typically used by customers who seek adjustment in the suspension for both street and track use. The adjustment allows customers to fine-tune the suspension for a variety of conditions, whether it's comfortable cruising on the street or trying to improve lap times at the track. Bilstein, Öhlins, and JRZ are popular brands in the segment that offer coilovers for the 718. So those are the three primary options for lowering your 718. This client chose a set of the H&R height adjustable springs. So let's get in the install process, give you an overview of how these go on, and we'll come back with some impressions. Install of height adjustable springs is very similar to any coilover spring setup. You're going to have to remove the factory suspension first, so let's show you how to do that. You're going to remove these trim pieces on the interior to gain access to the bolts on top of the strut tower. On the upper mounts, there's 3 bolts. You just loosen those up. Next, we'll remove the axle bolts. We're going to disconnect this axle shaft, make it a little easier to pull the whole assembly out. Then we're going to remove the brake caliper, and then we're going to hang this up, secure and out of the way. And then we'll loosen and remove the thrust arm bushing bolt on the lower control arm. And then go ahead and disconnect the camber bolts on the lower control arm. It's important to mark these so you can set them back when you torque everything back down. And then finish disconnecting the dog bones. And drop the entire assembly out. And we'll pull this away from the car carefully. Then all that's needed is to remove the strut assembly from the spindle. Here we're going to loosen the bolts on the lower control arm. And then remove the bolt holding the McPherson strut onto the spindle here. Just prime back the brake pads here because we're going to remove the caliper and hang the brake caliper like we did in the rear. Just secure it out of the way. Disconnect the brake pad wear sensor as well while you're doing this. And then remove the 3 bolts at the top of the strut on the upper mount. And that will allow the strut to swivel out. As you can see here, just be careful around the paint. And then this will pull directly out. Then we're going to take this over to a spring compressor. And this process is the same if you have fixed static springs or height adjustable springs. You'll just remove it, compress the spring, take the top mount off. And then we're going to put the lower spring perch that has the adjustment on top of the shock body here. It's a very tight tolerance, so we're just using a tapping technique to bring it down to the position it needs to be in. And then install the spring and the upper mount. And then everything is reversed. It goes back in the car the same way everything came out. Bolt it down, torque it down. On the 718 here, and along with the 981, the rear is actually a fixed lowering spring, and the front is a height adjustable spring in this kit. So we finished up the install and we're back here in the Cayman, just going down a fairly bumpy road that we go down, and you know, it feels pretty similar to stock. You still get that comfort Does have a little bit more of a spring rate. The shock travel is reduced a little bit because of the ride height. But let's take it on a few turns here on our little handling circuit and see how she does. Nice and stable. And so the car is very planted with this lower center of gravity. You can definitely feel a difference in terms of how flat the car feels. So my overall impressions of this height adjustable spring kit from H&R, it's a very nice kit. Lowers the car, gives a little more flat feel, reduces some of that body roll. Car's very neutral. Obviously the Cayman from the factory is pretty neutral and stable of a car. And yeah, the ride height looks great. I think the aesthetics really improved. We actually threw some of the Flat 6 Motorsports smoke side markers on as well, and just really kind of subtle touches that make this car look better. You know, just how there's a little more presence to it. And yeah, you know, you don't lose really much in terms of ride comfort at all. So it's a pretty worthwhile upgrade. If you're interested in suspension upgrades for your Cayman or Boxster 718, check us out at flat6.com. We have a ton of options, from lowering springs, height adjustable springs, coilovers, and then also some other components if you're looking for more performance out of the chassis and suspension setup for the track. Those are all available at flat6.com. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.